Welcome to the Nick, Dick, and Paul show. We're going to start with an introduction from
Paul Kedrosky. Hey.
I'm Dick Costolo.
And I'm Nick Bilton. And on today's show, we are going to talk about why companies fail. And Paul has lots of anecdotes and stories.
That was our best introduction yet so far.
I think so.
There was no talking over each other. Paul generally behaved himself throughout the entire process.
Right.
So there is all of these companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, blah, 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 that are throwing billions into AI and losing hundreds of billions. And it's very clear that they're not all going to succeed. And so we decided we were going to talk about why companies in the past have failed to see if we can kind of learn some lessons and dig out and figure out who will survive in the end of this. So we should start with Blockbuster because it's such a good one. So Blockbuster...
Can I start somewhere else?
No.
Why?
Yeah, of course if you want. But I thought Blockbuster was fascinating.
No, it's a good story. I just think,
we'll get to Blockbuster.
Yeah,
Don't
just
worry.
Screw you, buddy.
Don't worry your pretty little head over it.
No, I just want to say something else first, which is that I just think it's worth noting, like, to a first approximation, all companies fail. So it's the idea that failure...
Here we go.
Did he really do that?
I knew it.
They all
look,
fail.
in the end, we're all bad.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Nick, Dick, and Paul show.
Look, we're all broken. We're all broken.
Just the idea, though, that like that's the default mode. Like it shouldn't be particularly surprising. So what's interesting when a company fails when it shouldn't. That's my point.
Okay. All right. Like,
So-
for example.
Like Blockbuster is a good example. That if,
Oh, look, we're right back to the company.
but I just think the idea that like just that they fail, like who the fuck
right, so
cares?
let's
They
set
all
up-
fail.
Let's just
They
set
all
up.
fail.
There could be listeners on here. There is a stark chance that there is someone under the age of 30 on here who doesn't know what Blockbuster
Yeah.
is.
I saw a TikTok about that.
Did you really? Well, my kids.
This mother
wouldn't
was
know.
asking their kids about all these company names, and one of them was Blockbuster, and
Yeah.
they like guess what they did. Toys.
Yeah.
That was right.
Of course.
Because it's so long ago.
So
Nobody
long
knows.
ago.
So at its peak, Blockbuster had 9,000 stores.
What did they do?
Worldwide? They 65 million registered customers, $3 billion valuation. This is in the 90s, so it's probably even more now. This is something I did not know. They were given the option to buy Netflix for $50 million, and they said no.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did not know that either.
That's which is crazy.
Who are they given that option by? The Tooth Fairy or Reed Hastings?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, you didn't do
Aren't
it.
the Tooth Fairy and Reed Hastings the same person?
No. Well, depends who you ask.
So you could say that Netflix, was led to the demise of Blockbuster, but the question is, why didn't Blockbuster become Netflix?
I think it's worth going back and like, what did Blockbuster think they did, right? I mean, Blockbuster was a rental company. They thought they were.
We have to tell people now what Blockbuster did.
Yeah. But even I think it's even not just what they did, but what they thought they did, right? In the sense that like,
Yeah.
this idea of thinking, well, we're in the entertainment business, no
Yeah.
matter how it's delivered, we get it to people. They didn't think of themselves like that, right? They thought they were in the business of renting out these things called VHS cassettes that happened to contain movies.
Yeah.
That was the business, right? It wasn't that, because if you think about Netflix doesn't say we like to put things on fiber optic cables business, right? We're in the entertainment business. I don't care how it's delivered or where you are, you're going to get to see it. So once you start defining yourself that way, that starts to constrain the ways you think about the world. And I think Blockbuster really
okay,
thought
but
that.
hold on a second. Originally, Netflix was just shipping DVDs to people to
for
rent.
sure,
So
for sure.
not too far afield
Not too
from
far
what
afield, no.
Blockbuster was doing.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty short hop, skip, and a jump if you're Blockbuster to go, maybe we do this with the DVDs.
Yeah, maybe
So
the
what?
DVD
So again, how did they?
But
It's weird that they missed it.
It's also why did they not?
I want him to answer my question first.
But it's the same
want
part
Nick
of the
to answer
question.
my question.
It's the same part of the question is Netflix started off, as Dick said, as DVDs, and then started streaming, and then started making their own content. Why did Blockbuster not follow that same trajectory?
Well, I think part of it, my thing, and this goes back to the AI companies, which we'll come back to in a bit in the data centers, is once you make a huge capital investment in a particular way of doing things, you've got this shareholder pressure and other pressure to continue to monetize that asset. In the case of Blockbuster,
Real estate.
They have a bazillion stores loaded
9,000.
with VHS cassettes. they have huge shareholder pressure to continue to get the same rate of return.
What are
on
you
those
doing
assets.
mailing those DVDs around?
Why do we have stores if you're doing that?
Yeah, right. Why do we have all these stores?
Yeah, what's this all about? And so you get, I think part of it, not all of it, but part of it was they got trapped that way, that there was this, all the metrics that analysts use to evaluate them were based on same-store sales. Well, what happens if I don't have same stores anymore? Well, I can't use same-store sales anymore. I'm in big trouble. So you get trapped by the metrics you use to track the business. And I think they partially got trapped that way.
Yeah. And on the other side of the Netflix coin, I was on stage with Reed Hastings and a third person who will remain nameless for reasons that are about to be apparent, when Netflix was about to announce, and it was known that they were doing this, but they were about to announce their first streaming show, House of Cards. They hadn't done it yet, but we're going into and the third person on stage ran a big entertainment business that was in the business of making original content. And this third person, after Reed talked briefly about, well, we're about to release our first show, we'll see it, I like it, et cetera. This third executive goes, big smile on his face. You're going to find out how hard it is to create original content, buddy. But, via con Dios, go out there and give it a try.
Who was the third person?
Well, I'm not going to do that right now. There's no need to
Throw them under the
VHS cassette.
I remember I was doing, when I was at the Times, and I wrote a piece when Instagram came out. I was asked to write a story about why Kodak and Polaroid didn't make Instagram. And I spoke to the CEOs at the time, and there was also a really good Harvard Business Review study done on it. And their response was, I think it was the Kodak CEO said, he goes, we were going 90 miles an hour in a car, and we were being asked to change the motor as we were driving, and we couldn't do it. And we knew we had to, but we just couldn't do it.
But they weren't going 90 miles an hour. They were Polaroid.
Point. Yeah, not at that point they weren't.
They were going 1. All the other, it was relative. It looked relatively like they were going 90 because all the other cars were going past them quickly. And they were saying, why are those cars going so slowly while we're going 90 in reverse?
Just going backwards.
Yeah.
But I mean, one person I think you can kind of give props to is and I didn't think this would ever come out of my mouth, is Zuck. Like, Zuck completely screwed up. He was essentially heading to the Polaroid land by doing the virtual world stuff that he was doing. And then he was like, you know what? We're going to change, and we're going to go and we're going to build AI.
Reed did that as well. Don't forget, Netflix split into 2 companies, Quickster and Netflix.
That's right.
That's right.
We're making a big strategic change.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be Quickster. And I mean, that's a great literally 2 months, 3 months later, he basically came out and said, okay, think of how many CEOs would spend that kind of money on marketing and splitting the whole company up, dividing the org, buying new office space, spending $10 million on Quickster.com, and on and on and on. Think of how many CEOs would have the, audacity 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks later to go, oh man, that was a huge strategic mistake. I screwed up. We're completely going back.
Yeah.
Very few.
I heard a story about Reed that when they built a set-top box, and I may screw up some of the details here, but they built a set-top box.
Let's not cloud the issue with facts. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. Go with the good story.
And they had all the marketing, and they were going to release it, and it was going to be a whole thing. And it was a Friday, and everyone went home, and the Monday was the big announcement. And Monday morning, he comes in, he says, we're not doing it. And he says, I just my gut just says this isn't the right thing. And they pulled the whole thing, and it would have been another Quickster. So
that sounds like bullshit.
Yeah, it does sound like bullshit. He came in Monday morning and said, I had a dream last night. That a set-top box came to me and said, don't do it.
Our Sagittarius lead on this project.
But why is it that these some companies, you've run companies, you have invested in companies, and I have used companies.
Great.
I have a hypothesis.
Okay.
And either of you feel free to argue with it. My sense is the companies that fail too early or don't make those strategic changes they need to make are due to the decisions are made by a group instead of a single individual. In your example you just gave it, and in fact in the Netflix example we just talked about, it's an individual Mark Zuckerberg, who think like, well, you know what? Forget it. We're doing this instead.
Right.
And they instead of a group of people sits down and goes, well, we changed the name of the company to Meta. Everyone's going to be upset. Like what,
right.
Or Reed saying, wow, I screwed that up. My shareholder is going to beat me over the head, but the right thing to do is to completely go back, undo this, and start over on a different path.
But Kodak and Polaroid and Yahoo and all these other companies had individuals.
No, but they were run by committees. I mean, this was run
Was
by...
Yahoo run by a committee?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. By that point, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, you even remember with all the CEO changes that, well, maybe Jerry should run it now. Well, maybe, but David Filo thinks this, and Brad Garlinghouse is writing the Peanut Butter Manifest. I mean, it's serious,
Well,
right?
that's true.
Brad Garlinghouse said, why are we doing these 92 things? And
yeah.
yeah.
But I think that's true for small companies, for young companies.
To say nothing, by the way, of the Yahoo board, which was like a complete zoo.
Yeah. But if that's true, I think that's very true for young companies. But for some of these companies that have been around for a while, the Polaroids and others are a good example. It's not so much that there was some sainted individual inside who they should have turned to and said, please speak to us about the future and tell us what to do. I mean, the usual answer from the business school community types is like the Clay Christensen stuff, right? The innovator's dilemma. Right. The large incumbent saw something coming, Instagram in the case of Polaroid, and said, this looks like a toy. This is like it doesn't pay. It doesn't have anything to do with our business.
Right.
It may be growing quickly, but it looks like a toy, right?
Yeah.
So they just
it's free.
It's free. It just looks.
I'm going to make money off free,
right.
cool photo filters.
So it looks, and there's in Christensen in his books and so on cited 1,000 examples of what's happening across steel mills and technology and all these other places. And I think that's largely true. That in a lot of cases, large companies. Because if I'm a multi-billion-dollar company, my analysts are beating me up because they want me to find adjacent markets that are just as big. Not because they want me to find zero revenue, fast-growing businesses. I start talking about those things, I have really hostile calls with my analysts. So there's part of this is this pressure to find large markets instantly that are large. And these emerging markets aren't large initially. They look crazy, small, fast-growing, and unprofitable.
Yeah. What's an adjacent thing to what you already do where you wouldn't have to go spend a lot more money but could make a bunch of money?
Right.
And it's never the new disruptive thing that's going to completely cut you out at the knees.
Right. They have to have the foresight to see that digital photography is coming, and you're not going to be.
But they think they can get there incrementally, right? They think they can iterate their way to that place, and they see the thing. It's not they don't see the thing, the Instagram thing happening alongside. It's just that it doesn't seem relevant to their business because we can get there following our own path.
Paul, I have a prompt I'm going to give you. Okay,
What's that?
It's the city of Troy and ATI Technologies.
See, wow, that's a jumping off point. No, so the reason why I originally was talking about that was that. There's this historian, Barbara Tuchman, who's written this tremendous book, March of Folly, which is about why, through history, not just companies, but entire nations make these kinds of mistakes and that lead to these catastrophic failures. And she traces it from the fall of the city of Troy and the Trojan horse all the way forward.
The Trojan horse was a pretty dumb one. Yeah. In retrospect, if you're in war,
yeah.
I think
these guys were going to
boy, have we got a present for you.
Yeah, that's right. It feels a little bit too Monty Python than Monty Python does, right?
Yeah, that was a pretty bad one.
But her point, which I always really like, even more than I like the Christensen stuff, is that why do companies and countries pursue things that are contrary to their own self-interests?
Yeah.
So it's obviously not a good idea. And when there are other viable options available at the time, you can't say after the fact, oh, you should have done X. It has to have been something we recognized at the time and we said, oh, no, that's a stupid idea, or we shouldn't do that. And people were telling them about these things. So, it's this idea of pursuing policies contrary to your own self-interests when there were viable alternatives at the time, I think is a super powerful way of thinking about why companies screw up. So in the case of...
What was the viable alternative, though, to accepting the Trojan horse?
Don't accept the Trojan horse.
Fair. That's a viable alternative. What I want to know is who was the guy who went, wait a minute, I got an idea.
This could be okay.
You guys are going to let's make a giant wooden horse. And you guys are going to climb in there and then just be quiet.
And the five of you.
And we're going to roll you into Troy.
Yeah. The five of you will be like seals.
And then it's dark in there, but then just be kind of mentally calculating when it might be nighttime.
Yeah.
And then come out.
Right.
And then did none of the soldiers go, aren't they going to see the giant door on the Trojan, on the horse?
That's right. The secret door.
Also, let's not call it the Trojan horse, because that kind of gives away what we're doing.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to have a little bit of rebranding here. Where was I going?
No.
Back to ATI technology.
No one's with me on the
ATI
Trojan
technologies.
horse origin story.
There are
Wait,
more
hold
things
on.
they
What
screwed
is-
up in Troy. But.
What is ATI technology?
So long ago, I was an equity analyst, and one of the companies I followed was a company named ATI Technologies. They were a graphics chip company. So
Okay,
they were in
like
the
an
business,
NVIDIA.
like an NVIDIA. So at the time, they were in Toronto, in Markham, north of Toronto,
Literally making GPUs.
literally making GPUs, and they were at the time the dominant maker of
wow.
graphics processing.
What year is this?
To late 90s,
Okay.
something like that.
90s, 2000.
Yeah, right around there. And they were the largest maker of those things at the time. Like dominant, if you were talking about graphics chips, GPUs, you were talking about ATI Technologies. And so they were there before NVIDIA was, with the most advanced product on the market. I think it was called like Radeon or something. And they missed in the entire, where we are today with GPUs and data centers and NVIDIA being 100 quadzillion market cap, was theirs for the taking in a loose sense. Like they could have been NVIDIA. So the question is, why weren't they? And I've been thinking about that. And one of the answers I'm convinced was that they saw themselves as, they got trapped by their customers. So they saw themselves as the provider of graphics chips for companies who make games.
Yeah,
Right.
Because the gaming companies need graphics processing chips that can process things
Nukem or something
Yeah,
needs-
can process things at much faster speeds and render graphics.
So they were driving them, and they were saying, well, does this satisfy Electronic Arts or, ID Software or whoever it was, John Carmack's thing? Does it satisfy these guys? Because they're our lead customers. And so it's a great example of how you get trapped by your own customers, because in satisfying them, they weren't interested in all these other whack jobs who were started off, because NVIDIA emerged around the same time. NVIDIA had this API that allowed people to write software that used their GPUs for 1,000 purposes: scientific research, reinforcement learning, all these other things, which you couldn't easily do with ATI because they wrote it exclusively for the use of game manufacturers. It was not something that you could straightforwardly do. And so where ATI got captured by game manufacturers, NVIDIA was kind of like, you want to use our chip for any of these purposes that it's good for, solving gigantic matrices, go crazy. And it turned out that general usage absorbed the other one, right?
Correct.
It absorbed graphics processors, it absorbed large language models. And I think that's something I see in large and small companies, is how you get captured by your customers. And I'm sure you've seen this with like portfolio companies, that it's really important who your first 5 to 20 customers are, because they can lead you in directions that you don't necessarily want to go, because they're the types of people who adopt
And so
things. And
ATI was not letting people use the chips, whereas NVIDIA was like,
no,
do
you
whatever
could
the fuck
use
you
them,
want.
but there was no way to do it.
Got it.
Right? It wasn't that they said, oh, that's
Yeah.
against any kind of terms of use.
The APIs were all in favor of like building gaming engines.
like game shaders and stuff
right.
like this for high frame rate
Because correct me if I'm
engines.
wrong, NVIDIA was also an accident. It was researchers that needed fast chips for AI, and
But
they grabbed those.
because they didn't get captured by game manufacturers, made it possible for people to do that kind of stuff. They accidentally blundered into. It wasn't that they said, "Oh, AI is going to be huge, and we need to be in that." Not at all. It was just that
did they recognize that AI was going to be huge and then shift the whole business model?
No.
They just kept making the chips.
kept making the chips, kept making it easy for anyone, for scientists, researchers, and whoever to use them for whatever the heck they wanted to use them for, even games. And that, in turn, the customers figured it out, not the company. And they didn't get trapped by their early customers.
When
the way
did
they
NVIDIA figure out, oh, we have to shift and focus on that?
in the mid 2000s,
And
for sure.
and so, what do you think? Does it go back to Jensen Huang as the CEO, and he's making all the decisions? To what Dick said earlier, that is why they were able to do
No,
that.
because the units were flying in that. Like it was so obvious, given the unit sales, what was going on.
So, what's the lesson in the why companies fail and why they don't in that?
Well, that they didn't get trapped by their customers.
Got
They followed the numbers and didn't say, okay, we're going to keep focusing on the games market and saying, well, why won't they buy more? Now you're in this trap where not only am I trying to satisfy the gaming market, my revenues only grow if games grow.
RIM
terrible
BlackBerry got trapped by their customers, or rather, they misunderstood their customer. I mean, the lesson from BlackBerry was they thought this stupid glass. To type it on the glass. No, people love it when the keyboard clicks.
Yeah.
Do you remember when?
Am I right?
No,
I mean, I think that's right.
Yeah.
They in fact, they were like befuddled by the typing on the. That's his look. It's the first one's working,
right.
but it's kind of a goofy fad, and people love type clicking on the keyboard.
Because they thought
on
that feedback,
Yeah,
the
that
feedback, the tactile
feedback.
feedback of the
BlackBerry
clicking.
feel. But but it's a great example of thinking like, here's what our customers want, and here's what they always talk about, that special BlackBerry keyboard feel. It turned out to be irrelevant, but that's how they responded to the iPhone launch, was with a touch screen that actually moved, physically moved, to give you that feeling.
I remember that feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like,
It was like a car touchscreen where it went.
yeah. And it turns out that like customers didn't, at least the new customers didn't care because retail was increasingly driving it, not enterprise sales. And the interesting thing was like enterprises still convinced themselves for a long time. Large companies, especially the banks, were like, oh yeah, we'll never go to iPhone. That's just, our users just want keyboards. And so you would see increasingly at big banks, they'd smuggle in iPhones.
Yeah.
Right.
Like 2011, 2012, there was still these enterprise banking customers on BlackBerries and everyone else walking around with iPhones.
Or they had two phones.
They had two phones.
Wouldn't let their IT guys see it.
Yeah. Well, you had to be the BlackBerry is the only one that has the enterprise email platform on it, blah, blah.
Right.
The thing that I find so fascinating about the phone specifically, or I was in the new. I remember I designed CD covers in the 90s, and I remember the MP3 came along, and the execs were like, "Oh, it's never going to replace this. You people are stupid." And
is this when you were at the New York Times and you needed to like eke out a better eke out a better living?
I designed children's toys before that. I did the first Britney Spears doll.
The first Britney Spears doll you designed?
I designed that.
The whole
and
doll?
the packaging, the whole thing, yeah. For fun.
Who came to you and said?
I was a graphic designer. I was designing like packaging and CD covers and everything. And someone came along and they said, it's actually a crazy story. They come along and one thing about the toy industry.
You're walking down the street?
No, it's like people knew they could call me and I could design something for them.
And you're at the New York Times at this point?
No, it's pre-New York Times.
Oh, I see.
Pre-journalism days. This is like.
I thought this was like a side hustle.
Mid-90s, early 90s.
Wait a minute. Are you designing Britney Spears doll?
No.
And then the New York Times is like, I'll tell you what you should do. You know what I see? Tech columnist.
No,
in your
but
future.
a guy called me up and he was like, yeah, I need you to design this. And the thing about the toy industry, it's run.
I thought of the Britney Spears doll and I thought, Nick Bilton.
No, it didn't matter.
Have that Nick Bilton
Get me
feel.
Bilton. Get me Nick Bilton.
That Barton fake
These
feel.
guys were all Hell's Angels. It was run by the Hells Angels.
Of course it was.
Of course it was. Please continue.
This guy was a motorcycle Hells Angels guy, and
so the Hells Angels were licensing Britney Spears.
No, they were making toys. I don't know why. Maybe they got into plastics. I have no idea. Anyway, I did it. He paid me like $5,000 or something like that, which at the time was a lot for me. And he ended up.
Was it all in like laundered drug money? Like once?
He got points. He got points on it, and he made like I don't know, like $25 million off that Britney Spears.
Is he still in the Hells Angels?
I don't think so. I think he lives in New Jersey.
Yeah, of course. Well, but again,
that's what they do.
That's the logical conclusion.
That's the step up.
Anyway, the music industry, they were like, MP3s are never going to happen. Of course they did, right? We all know the trajectory of this. What's fascinating, though, is I was at Nokia in 2008. It's a year after the iPhone comes out. I went there for some. Then I was at the Times. I was doing a story. And they were like, we just had our best year of sales ever. And what's fascinating is when you look at this, and Paul, you and I have talked about this, whenever this new thing comes along, it's usually 1 or 2 years later that the industry that's about to be completely taken over has their best year. Journalism, the greatest in 2000, 99, 2000, the New York Times made $1 billion. They'd never done that before. And then, of course, now look at the newspaper industry.
That was all Wordle, though.
It is crazy how 50% of the Times profits is the game.
Games and cooking, right?
I was going to say games and cooking are the two.
I think 20% is from news and the rest is.
But it's a similar story with Bloomberg as well, right? I mean, obviously, like the business, people know them for their journalism, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the underlying business. It's about terminal sales, which are actually driven by data, but mostly, and this is the weird part, by instant messaging, which is the craziest part of the Bloomberg story.
Wait, what do you mean by instant messaging?
Bloomberg messaging is like
that's what everyone's paying for.
Everyone's paying for. It's
why can't they just send a text message?
Because if you're on the service, you're by default talking to other buy and sell side people. So if you have a block of something you want to sell, a lot of the time that transaction is organized via Bloomberg messaging. So it's essentially a giant WhatsApp terminal,
Amazing.
right?
That's remarkable.
Yeah, and everyone sees it for all the other things, but that's really, it used to be people said, oh, it's just the data. It's not even the data anymore. It's literally a WhatsApp terminal.
Well, but going back, the thing that's crazy is that I feel like we're now in this moment where AI, you have these companies, specifically in Hollywood, that are about to have they're having their best sales, yours, in a long time, partially because of COVID. You can argue. Well, this is like if you look at, Netflix, for example.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like, wasn't 2019 the peak of Hollywood?
Well, it was, but it's hard to quantify it because in 2020 no one went to the movies.
Right.
So,
but it hasn't come back since. So let's call
it has not. It's come back. It's not
like
2020 trough level. It's
like 50% though.
Yes, 50%. It's not come back.
Pretty off.
So the question is what I'm fascinated by is when we look at these lessons from all these companies in the past, ATI and Yahoo, and who is going to survive in the future? Are there any lessons to learn from them to see? Is OpenAI going to be around? They're going to lose how much? $200 billion in the next
couple
few years?
Yep.
Yeah, like Claude, Anthropic, all these places, Meta. Like, how much money can they lose? Who's going to be around? What can you learn from it?
I think part of the lesson you have to learn is that one of the ways this stuff works is that the new players break the economics of the old business, right? So I used to joke that the best way, I don't like people who are trying to build $10 billion businesses. This is venture capital hat on. It was more like, I'd like to find someone who wants to take a $10 billion business, shrink it to a half $billion, which blows up all the incumbents because their economics no longer work. And then you grow it up a second time, right? And I think we're seeing a little bit of that right now in the just to pick on entertainment and then backdoor into AI, that the economics of the industry look absolutely broken, right? Because it's like 15-second clips and people are doing them for free and they do 1 million of them and they're willing to do the work for $50. It's like, I can't touch that economics given the costs of just, turning on the switch for beginning to do a daily shoot for some television show or movie. Like, I just can't even touch those kinds of costs. I need the business to look like this to justify my cost layer, right? And that's, I think that for me is the tell that that's where you're headed, is that whenever you see the industry economics essentially collapsing, where it's not just like, oh, well, we have to do it for 10% less. It's that, no. You have to do it for 90% less because the economics are being transformed. Then you're like, okay, fine. This means the incumbents are all in huge trouble, right? Which is what's happened in way back in music, what happened in DVDs, but then happening now in entertainment. So it's the economics are being taken like to a reasonable approximation of like zero. Where in terms of like what you have to have no cost.
At the same time, that has led to, I must have been pitched on 12 to 15, we're going to be an AI first movie studio.
Oh God, there's hundreds of them. Hundreds.
Yeah.
The problem is they keep talking about the technology and the AI, but they're not talking about story. And that's what is going to replace it.
Well, and it's also not what ticket buyers care about. It's like, I don't go to the show waiting to see, oh, this was done with, what's the old color,
right?
The old color that was done in the color cast or whatever. Cinecolor, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Cinecolor.
Yeah, this wasn't. Oh, I only see those. Those are the only movies I go to, are the ones that were filmed that way. And it's the same thing now. It's like, I don't really care how it was produced. Is it a good story? And, and I don't even really care about the ticket prices as much, right? It's just this idea that, like, the weird thing about the movie industry is if the movie costs $500 million or costs $50 million, the ticket price doesn't change. It's a really unusual industry in that regard. It's easy to miss that. Like, normally the cost of using something is associated in some way with the cost of producing it. And the movie industry is not like that at all, which is completely bizarre. And for whatever reason, no one ever notices it anymore. But this idea that there is no relationship, and that's what makes it unusual. So it's just about the story. It's not about how much it costs to do it. It's not whether you use Dolby Sound. It's not whether you used an AI studio.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight. You can have a movie that costs $200 million to make and a movie that costs $5 million to make, and the tickets to the movie theater are still $7 or whatever, and the cost to subscribe to the channel it's streaming on is the same.
Right, which is to say, like, there's an implicit bet that there's something else that the buyers care about.
Right.
And they care about story.
Right.
Yeah. They care whether is it a good story.
Have any of the people that you have pitched you their AI movie studios, do they talk about story, or do they focus on is the AI and the technology?
what they focus on is that they understand Hollywood and storytelling,
Yeah.
but they're going to start using these new technologies to make movies a different way.
Have you invested
AI
in any of them?
And the existing players can't do it because the unions are preventing them from using AI and blah, blah, blah.
It's the same old story.
Yeah. It's not clear also that people do care about story because the movie Carry On was the biggest film on Netflix.
Wow, it's taken us this many episodes to carry on.
I don't know
comes.
how that movie ever got made because there's a plane in the movie in which if you're seated in 14E, you can crawl into the cargo hold and go get your luggage.
Yeah.
And then there's also a vacuum sealed cabinet that's glass that you can see into in the cargo hold in case somebody has a poison gas canister that needs to be sealed.
You
can walk onto the
What?
I haven't seen Carry On.
Yes, you got to see it.
I've totally.
You can walk
I
onto
saw it
the
because I was told it was the new Die Hard.
Yeah.
This tells you exactly how disconnected
you can
things are.
walk on. Someone walks onto the. These are, by the way, it's PS spoiler alert, but I don't care. I hope I ruin it for everybody who hasn't seen it. You can walk onto the tarmac.
Oh yeah,
while
that's
the
true.
Department of Homeland Security is saying like that plane has a bomb on it. We have to ground it. You, random person, can walk onto the tarmac and say, I'm with airport operations. We need to let that plane take off. My husband is on it and he has a plan.
That's right.
Then they let the plane take off.
Oh, that hit.
Who
Yeah, my husband has a plan.
wrote this movie and thought, wait, I got it. I know how we wrap this up.
I think the question that Dick is trying to, for me to pull a Dick and
it was too long.
And ask the question that he,
Yeah.
the question he's trying to ask is, will AI be able to
produce things at least as good as Carry On? The answer is yes.
But
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Of course.
but better.
Well, it does need to be better
Clearly doesn't need to be better. It was the number one movie
for months.
for months.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it. No, now that you've ruined it for me, how am I going to be able to watch it?
It's pre-ruined. I think.
It comes ruined. It's so dumb before that.
Yeah. But I
There's
think
so many. I mean, from the beginning of this movie, you think when you're watching it, like, am I insane?
yeah.
There's a sniper in a van, and the guy gets on the walkie-talkie and goes, "She's near the Delta check-in," and he drives like a foot and pulls out a
that's
sniper
right.
rifle
Yeah,
and
that's right.
barely misses her. I'm like,
No, it turns out the parking garage is adjacent to the check-in counter. You could literally see the
with
check-in
line
counter.
of
Should,
sight.
we make our media of the week things that we've hated?
No. All right, I'm done.
No, I
I'm
didn't
done with
actually-
Carry On.
I didn't actually hate Carry On. I was really like,
Oh my God! Of course you did.
no, but it was just more that it was like anthropologically fascinating. I was like, is this real?
So Ed Catmull, the president
Yeah.
of Pixar, has this great story about Story Matters.
Okay,
That
great.
I'm not going to relate to you. When Pixar was doing so well, and just before it sells to Disney, Ed, when he and Steve Steve Jobs were interviewed about Pixar's success and why it's doing so well, and how come you're beating all these, you're beating a DreamWorks SKG and their animated studios, you're beating Disney and their animated films, and Ed Catmull would say, well, in these little one-on-one interviews with media, he would say, well, what you don't understand is all these other movie studios care about, getting the big movie star and getting the so-and-so and who's going to direct and blah, blah, blah. And at Pixar, the story comes first. The story matters and the story comes first. Mm-hmm. And Ed says, cut to 2-3 years later, we've sold to Disney and I'm down at, I'm in the, Fox 20th Century Fox at the times studios and meeting with one of the studio heads at Fox and asking him, tell me about how you make films here at Fox. And the Fox executive looks at Ed Catmull and goes, well, Ed, here at Fox, these other movie studios, they like to think about getting the big star. They like to think about who's going to direct. At Fox, the story comes first, And so he's just had this we thought we were, we thought we were the story comes first guys. Everybody here is the story comes first guys.
It's a constant refrain.
It's
literally the line everyone uses.
Yeah.
These other guys don't get it.
Yeah.
The story comes first.
Yeah.
I hear it nonstop.
Yeah.
It's endless. But Pixar's a good example though. Pixar's a company, back to the company failing thing. Pixar's a company that should have failed repeatedly. Right. If you read this, the backstory on Pixar, it was repeatedly at the edge. Jobs tried to unload it at various times.
Right.
They thought they were a hardware company at different times. Yeah. So it's easy to retrospectively look back and say, "Oh, what can we learn from Pixar?" You can learn fuck all, right? You can, because it was maybe. The only lesson is rise early, work hard, hire John Lasseter, make Toy Story, right? This is the lesson, right? But all the other stuff, all the other bullshit about like story comes first, embrace new technologies, they were failing doing all those things. They were failing all the way along until they got that, a couple of Lasseter helm projects did the trick. So we impose these narratives after the fact and say like, oh, we can learn. Because I hear this from the AI studios. As I look at these guys who are all likely to fail, we're going to be the Pixar of this next generation of films. And it's like, well, then you're screwed, because they were screwed for most of their history and they got lucky at the end. It wasn't that there's a model to exploit where a technology first storytelling studio becomes a multi-billion-dollar exit. That's not at all the case. That's not the real story of Toy Story. And I find all these examples are just so ad hoc. Like, people are just like pulling it out of their asses.
So to continue on the companies fail rubric over here, when you look at all these AI companies that are losing all this money, do they all succeed or do some fail? Like, I'm talking the big ones. I'm talking the big ones here.
You have to. These things generally feel like they look. The history repeats itself, and there were, when the early days of search, there were 10 search engines, right? Yeah. There was Lycos and Alta Vista and Excite, and Excite merged with so-and-so, and then Yahoo, and then
Ask Jeeves, remember that one?
I mean, of course.
I miss Alta Vista.
Alta Vista was great.
Yeah, I
really liked Alta Vista.
Anywho, so I think that and this doesn't just go for the LLMs, like, it's Anthropic and it's OpenAI and it's Cohere and it's so-and-so. It goes for on the video models. There are 12 of these video models. There's Luma and there's Runway and there's literally, and then there are the 3D world models and the audio models. And I think in all these cases, there are going to be a couple really huge companies where the investors will have been right and glad and make an absolute fortune
and lie about that they knew it all the time.
Yeah, and then lie about I was early and so and where early was at the $160 billion valuation.
But the thing that's interesting that I think will put even more pressure on that happening is that the unit economics.
That's what I was going to ask.
Are so catastrophic in large language models.
Yes.
That the pressure.
Let's talk about what you mean about the temporal difference, the temporal delta between assets and liabilities in the LLM world.
Right, because
I don't think that's a commonly understood.
Can you explain it?
Let's start off with the unit economics. So think about it in terms of Google does a search or you do a search on OpenAI.
Right.
There's a cost associated with that. Sure. Not a cost that's charged directly to you, but a cost that the service provider, Google or OpenAI, incurs. It's like a fraction of a penny at Google for your search. And they can monetize that. They can make money from it by layering ads on top. So there's their margin, right? Fractions of a penny cost in terms of servicing your request. Pennies at the very least, and sometimes even a lot more at volume on a per request basis in terms of what they make from a search. It's a really good business.
Yeah, Eric Schmidt's Gulfstream jets didn't pay for themselves.
They did not pay for themselves. It's that margin right there. It's not the case at large language models. Large language models, and it's the old joke, lose money.
The old joke.
No, they lose money on every sale, but try to make it up on volume, right? They lose money on every search. And it's like, it's okay. It'll work out at scale. They're trying to make it up on volume. You can't do that. And the reason is because it's costing them, on a trivial large language request, it might be 15 to 20 cents.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So 15 to 20 cents every time I say, I want to make a chicken. I don't have any butter. What's my recipe?
Right. And then it goes up. So image diffusion models are more expensive. More complex reasoning questions are more expensive. So I like to think like I'm trying to empty Sam's pocketbook every time I ask a complicated question.
I thought you were going to talk about, on the economics piece, I thought you were going to talk about the fact that we're financing the build out of these things like the data centers and GPUs with long-term debt. Oracle just raising $15 billion of 40-year debt for an asset, GPUs inside the data centers, that depreciate lose the value over 2.5 years.
Which is nothing like rail lines or fiber or whatever, which don't lose their value. So there's two different pressures, right? There's the pressure of the infrastructure itself has this temporal mismatch, meaning that I've got long debt and short lifespans. But there's also the mismatch in terms of the actual economics of doing the request. Are also broken. So you put those two things together, and so the pressure for consolidation, meaning like fewer companies, is going to be immense. So so in answer to your question, they all fail to. It's going to be like one or two companies left. It'll be like San Diego Gas and Electric. There'll be like one utility provider who's providing you with this thing, because to have more than that, the economics don't work. It's going to be so restricted.
But the economics for OpenAI to become a profitable company is. I don't see how that's possible.
So the only way it can happen.
Yeah, but okay, let's just also understand, every time one of these situations, like, it's so valuable and yet it's free to me, how is it ever going to work? Like, those things always sort themselves out.
Yeah. So
they just do.
Either the cost.
How many articles about Twitter when I first got there in 2009 to 2000 whatever were, sure, it's like useful, but like it's never going to make any money. There's no way for it to make money.
Amazon,
Google,
Twitter,
Google,
Amazon back in the day.
Amazon for a while, like even when it was doing
your expenses
crazy
of
amounts of
running
revenue.
Twitter were not $200 billion in loss.
On a relative scale, zero in revenue, and then Amazon was doing really well in revenue and starting to sell lots of different things. There are lots of smart executives out there saying, yeah, but look, it's never going to be profitable. And then, Jeff flicked the switch and
you think about how does that happen, right? So there's at least two different ways you could get there. One of them is that people just are willing to pay a lot more. And it won't be you and I as individuals. It's going to be corporations. So it becomes like a utility that's plugged in like alternating current, that they're just paying for constant usage of tokens. And that becomes a terrific, annuity income for companies. So that's one way. And the other way, which I think is even more interesting, is the idea that the cost collapse. And how would the cost collapse of running a large language model? Well, it's because for the most part, humans all ask the same stupid questions to large language models. I saw a stat the other day, like 50% of requests to large language models are functionally the same.
I have a headache. What does it mean? Do I have a tumor?
I want to take some kind of stupid drug. Which stupid drug should I take?
How do I cook this chicken?
Which peptide should I take? Peptides should I take?
So you ask yourself, like, if these companies are way ahead of me on this, but if I'm at the other side of this, what's the first thing I ask my engineers? Can't that just like hit a cache or something? Can't I just pull that out of like some random lookup table and say, like, if someone asks this, for God's sake, don't run the whole model just to answer that question. So the point being, a huge fraction of the requests to these models, in theory, can be satisfied out of prior users' requests. There's all kinds of tricks and hacks and ways to do this, but that slashes the costs dramatically in terms of providing the answers to these queries, but it also plays back into data centers. So let's say I'm in the data center business, and I'm extrapolating and saying there's X many requests today, and there's going to be 1,000X tomorrow. So linearly, I extrapolate and say, well, here's how many GPUs we need. No, you're dead wrong. You're dead wrong. And the reason why you're dead wrong is because of these efficiency gains that are coming. So it's going to be a fraction of that. So people are building data center capacity as if we will never become more efficient at answering questions. So that's one of the craziest flawed assumptions you see out there. And Fermi just went public, and others. And
Oklo, Fermi,
they're all based on these crazy ideas about
I never
extrapolation.
realized you could have a pre-product, pre-revenue company that you IPO'd for $20 billion, or I would have I could have saved a lot of time and energy.
Right, we're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
Like having a functioning company is so much trouble.
Yeah. We have costs, we have infrastructure.
Performance reviews. I hate
performance reviews we have to do.
Yeah, all those things. So, but the idea
for people who don't realize, there are multiple pre-product, pre-revenue companies that are public and trading at tens of billions of dollars,
but all based on assumptions about what the future
the linear growth of demand for
Just because the queries are going to go up doesn't mean that I need to paper the planet in data centers. But that's what's happening. That's the assumption that's being made, and it's not going to work.
And how is it going to end?
It's going to end with a lot of data centers turning into laser tag. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. Data centers repurposed for laser tag. Yeah. There you go.
All right. Well, on that note, we should probably move on to our media of the week, unless you have any last thoughts on the data centers.
No,
I read a really good book recently. You've read the same book. You have not read this book, but it's a good book. I don't mean it's a good book in like it makes you feel good.
What's the woman who has the 7 of the top 10 things on the New York Times
Colleen
bestseller
Hoover.
list? Colleen Hoover. My media of the week next time is going to be Colleen Hoover.
Want you to, I want you to read
one of her classics.
I want you to read. I mean, there was a sentence. It's like his hot breath touched her.
Oh, I've
cheek.
read that one.
It's like it's literally like if you went to an LLM and you said write me a cheesy romance novel.
All right.
You're saying I shouldn't do that anymore?
Before people criticize
Don't
me,
get so upset.
No, because
I haven't
people
even
will
read any of
criticize
her
me. Oh, the
books.
people are reading. That's like saying, oh, well, people are eating because they're eating a McDonald's. No, it's garbage. It's not good for you.
You're very upset about
It
this
really
woman.
bothers me. There's so many amazing
really
authors
triggering.
out there.
What did Colleen Hoover do to you
She hurt me
How did she hurt you?
with her words?
Show me on your body.
on my Yelp review.
Because on your elbow. I'll make
I
it
thought you said show me on your Yelp review.
or that. On your elbow or your Yelp review.
So the battalion of it's Battalion 150.
Yeah.
What's the title again? I forget. The battalion that's
Police Battalion.
Police Battalion 150. It's about this police battalion in during World War II, and they were all retired or older, and they were called up to exterminate Jews, and they were. I mean, it was horrific. And what's crazy is a lot of them drank to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They would just literally have to take thousands. They would go from town to town to town, take thousands of Jews, women, children mostly, because the men would go off to the camps, and they would take them in the woods and execute them. And they all were doing drugs and drinking because they couldn't handle it. And then it's kind of this look back at like, were they bad people?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
The answer is, I think, yes.
well,
We
a
can
lot
all
of them
agree.
don't. A lot of them don't even remember it. Like they've blocked it out,
well,
and some of them.
sure.
There was one guy. I remember there was one guy that was fascinating. He believed that he was doing like God's work because he was saving them from having to live a worse life if they.
There's the book that came out at the same time, which gets into that, is Daniel Goldhagen's Hitler's Willing Executioners, which is also terrific, but it's terribly depressing. But the point being, though, that why were ordinary people willing to do these things? The story of ordinary Germans in the Holocaust, and how they normalized the behavior and felt like, whether it was because of this, what was the Hitler's term for building more space, having more living space, or because they felt like there was something about the German people. They all had reasons which were not overtly evil. They had these reasons that they came to, and the result was horrific. The result was just beyond something in a horror movie. But that's what's interesting to me about the book, is how ordinary people can do terrible things.
And then also the other part that lastly that was fascinating was the toughest, biggest guys were the ones that broke, and the quietest, weedy looking ones were the ones that were kept going,
enthusiastic
about murder.
Yeah, it's a tremendous book. I mean, is that the Brown? It's Christopher Browning, I think, wrote that one, right? Yeah, no, it's really.
Do you want to talk about your favorite Colleen Hoover book?
My media of the week is 30 Rock. I'm going in a totally different direction.
30 Rock. Okay.
I'm going to dial it. You've never seen 30 Rock?
No.
Are you
Hold on.
serious?
I mean, I know it exists.
Have you seen a clip,
Okay.
an episode?
Come on.
Nothing.
This is just nonsense.
No, I've never seen it. I mean, I know it exists, and I've seen.
This is what I must sound like when I don't know what a tennis ball sounds like when it hits a piece of
No,
grass.
I've never seen it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I know it exists. It's like Grey's Anatomy. I know it exists.
Have
You've
seen
never
Grey's
seen it?
Anatomy?
Hold on. This whose media of the week is this? Me or you?
Sorry.
Did I jump in on Police Sector 150?
I'm sorry. It's my anti-media.
Yeah. You've never seen an episode of
No,
30 Rock.
100% sure.
All right. So I'm delighted for you because you get to watch 30 Rock for the first time. But I actually went through with my daughter and rewatched the entire thing.
The entire
soup
thing.
to nuts.
How many years did it run?
Many. Seven,
It took him years to rewatch
six,
it.
six, seven, a lot.
Wow. And what was your takeaway?
Her Tina Fey's capacity and her writing team's capacity to weave classic literary tales and theatrical tales and cinematic tales and references into a hilarious 22-minute sitcom that stands on its own is extraordinary.
Is that the one about the ad agency? No, right?
Good Lord. Oh my God. It's like dental surgery sometimes with you people.
What's that one?
That's Bad Men.
Bad Men. I've heard of that one.
Oh my God.
I've never seen it either.
What have you seen?
All right, hold on.
I watch The Wire a lot.
30 Rock is essentially a behind the scenes in the writer's room at an SNL type show.
Oh, it's
Saturday Night Live type show. And Alec Baldwin
very
plays the head of the network. And hilarity ensues. Tina Fey plays the head writer of the show. She's also actually the head writer of 30 Rock, and hilarity ensues.
What's also great about it is the characters, even though it's comedic and it's, it's a little ridiculous, like you care about the characters. Like they're great characters.
It's just really, really, really well done and is consistent. Every episode over multiple years delivers.
So
A must watch.
He also has never seen.
Here we go.
He's never watched or heard anything. Dave Chappelle.
No, that's true.
Isn't that insane?
I mean, I know he exists.
He's like one of the greatest comics of this generation, and
No,
never.
No. Well, I mean, you mentioned him the other day, and I was, I was like, yeah, I've heard that name. Yeah, I don't get out much.
All right. Well, on that note.
Wait, I have one. No, I
have one.
I already said mine earlier.
Well, I thought we were sharing one this week, but what's yours?
No, it was the Tuckman book. The March of Folly. Which is, in all seriousness, just tremendous. Because for me anyways,
what does she think?
Was it written by Colleen Hoover?
Yes, it was. Co-written, actually.
Who does she think came up with the idea of the Trojan horse? And does she say that? Does she point out that really bad move letting the Trojan horse in?
I think she blames Michael Palin.
It's just so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't someone up there going like, man, this seems suspicious?
Her point about it is that she talks that was only one of a series of terrible decisions, and so she does not to get fixated on giant bunnies or whatever.
Okay,
there's a whole series of terrible decisions, but the idea that tracing forward how people make terrible decisions in large organizations, despite good alternatives and people telling them to stop being such idiots, is really interesting, and that's what she's essentially talking about, and it's great.
All right,
let's wrap.